Perfect. Thanks very much, Simon. But as Simon was saying, definitely jump in and ask questions. I want it to be conversational. I don't want it to be a death by PowerPoint. I mean, basically, we've picked like the very, very rough highlight of what we've done the last 8 years. And this talk's going to take us up to as far as the States. But to be honest, it's the lion's share of the whole thing, because it was what, 6.5 years, Niamh, of between boat project and sailing. So we'll jump straight in, and we've got Nick as well, which is the guy I bought the boat off, and he was a huge part of the project. And you'll see why in the next slide. So the first slide is just the Atlantic circuit we did. So we left Ireland in 2021, sorry. After we built the interior of the boat, which was from 2017 up to 2018 up to 2021. So the picture on the left is the state that we got the boat in, which was basically a very fresh bare hull, and a rig and an engine. So that's basically where we started. The photo on the left is about, I suppose it would have been 12 years ago. That's when Nick got the boat. It was in a shed. The story goes that the boat was at anchor in Baltimore, and there was a fire, and the boat was dragged along the side of the pier, and the fire was put out, and then it was bought by a guy through insurance and then put on the hard, and they started the project to restore the boat, and between the jigs and the reels, it never got finished, and ended up getting completely left alone, and significant corrosion took over the next 10, 15, 20 years before Nick got his hands on it. And you'll see the next picture, and Nick's in the Nick's in the next slide, and you'll wonder what he was thinking. I often wonder what I was thinking, but I definitely wonder what he was thinking. The hull was in great condition when we got it. So the photo on the left is fairly early on when Nick got it. It was significantly corroded. The deck and the cockpit were gone. There was mostly pitting in some of the hull plates, so he cut out a lot of the hull plates and replated it. Things like that, and new cockpit design, and mostly the same coach roof design, but he kept the Coatman's look, but with his own twist. And then the picture on the right is the day I actually bought it off him. And yeah, it was a lot further along, but still a huge amount of work left to do. Then again on the left is the boat before Nick cut the deck off and replaced that. And the one on the right is we used to get a lot of people come down to the boatyard to help us. We started a YouTube channel early on and captured a lot of stuff, and we used to get a lot of random emails from people asking if they could come and help us out and join us, and we made a lot of really good friends through that. And that YouTube is still there. We don't do it as much, but that was a big part of the project.
Question for you.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Good. Nice to see your face. Who was the designer of your boat?
So it's Dick Coatman's design. He's a fairly famous Dutch designer.
Okay.
Well, it was Dick Coatman Senior, and his son he still designs, and he actively ocean cruises as well. He has a YouTube channel as well, but it's more just kind of like a personal log thing. But you'd see him; he'd often be involved with the GGR as well. So he's a very active designer. He's a very active sailor as well, and his designs are incredible. The Huttings build his designs as well. So yeah, they're fantastic design.
So was he able to assist you in recreating the coach roof and the cockpit?
It's a good question. Nick, can you answer that one? Is that fair to throw that over to you? You might still be on mute. So
yeah, sorry, I was just figuring that out. No, I looked at a lot of different drawings of Cookman's designs, and I just sort of basically blended a few together. She started with the center cockpit, and it didn't really work for me, so I turned the aft cabin into an aft cockpit. That was all I did, basically.
Well, that's all you did. It was, I mean, a huge amount of work, right? I really like the as Nick said to me the start day one, the aft cabin with more of a crawl space, and we've turned it into like a garage, and it's more of a storage area. So we have a sail locker and a head on one side, and then on the other side we just have a huge amount of storage. Like we put all our fenders in there and everything, and it keeps the cockpit very clean because everything can go inside. So I like the design. I liked how it ended up.
Cool. Thank you.
And Nick, you never, I mean, the thing is as well, the whole design was never changed. So she kept her design characteristics as well, and very comfortable both. Like she's been across twice with me, and I don't think she ever did it before that, but I know that we had a really comfortable time in, you know, a very big mix of weather. There's a Robert Rivage.
Yeah, I had a quick question about the dimensions, your beam and your length overall, and what kind of draft you have.
So the boat, do you want it in European or American?
Sometimes I can do the math, sometimes I can't.
So it's 11.5 meters overall, which is just shy of 38 feet. The beam is 3.56 meters, which I suppose is 13 or so feet. And then I measured the draft in the Bahamas. It was 1.785 meters or something, and just shy of 6 feet.
Okay.
So it's not a big boat by like modern standards, but it was a really good size for. I did some trips single-handed, and I did some trips with crew, and I did some trips, most of it with just me and Niamh. And I never really came, you know, we couldn't take more than two crew, so it was three of us in total, you know, at most. But once you see the interior, you'll see kind of what the way we laid it out, and we made it very comfortable for two of us.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, and before I forget as well, like I routinely get the credit for this project, but Niamh did probably most of it. So like, you know, I'm the one talking, but Niamh, it's just because Niamh is a bit shy at talking sometimes. So if you have questions specifically for Niamh, like come in and ask her, you know, because she's been the biggest part of this project. So Nick, were you going to say something there? Sorry, before I cut you off.
No, we were just talking about modifications to the design. The hull wasn't changed at all. The only other thing was the watertight bulkhead in the front.
Oh yeah, which is only like water resistant at the moment because I don't have a seal on the door.
Yeah.
Luckily we didn't need it, but it's definitely something I like that design. It stiffens the boat up a lot, you know. So the next pictures. So this is kind of a bit of a mix of stuff. The picture on the top left is the day that we launched her in Baltimore. We'd had to get a very big crane in and lift her up over a shed and dump her in the mud and then drag her out of the mud because I couldn't get the engine running that day. And we dragged her over to deeper water, and she stayed there for a few weeks while we got ready to go up to Kinsale. I wanted to bring the boat up to Kinsale, which is about 50 nautical miles for anyone who's not familiar with the south coast of Ireland, because it was close to where I worked. So I work full time, and we both worked full time throughout the project, and we did the full fit out over 3 years of evenings and weekends. So we would, Niamh would be down every Friday and Saturday, Sunday, and I would work on the boat after work from 6 p.m. to probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning every single day. Yeah, it was incredibly difficult, but it was the only way we would have been able to do it. And I couldn't back out anyway because I'd invested too much. But the picture on the right then is when we sailed it up. We left. That was the first time we ever put the sails up, and we went straight to Kinsale. Myself and Nick did. And the bottom left is how we had the interior laid out for that trip. We had 2 jerry cans ratchet strapped to the makeshift floor. It was an old engine that Nick had pulled out of a sunken boat. The rig as well was off a sunken boat. That we later replaced that because it was too big. And we had a great day. It was actually the fastest the boat's ever been. we flew up to Kinsale. It was a lovely day. It was a really nice day. And then the bottom right picture is where I spent, I suppose, better part of 2 years fitting the boat out on the marina. We didn't do it in a boatyard. We did it in the marina because we didn't have anywhere to live while we did it. I originally lived in the van. I'll show you pictures of that later. So that we could fund it, because we couldn't afford to rent as well. So we put a hammock in there and spent 2 Irish winters without insulation, which was horrendous. The picture on the left is how we set up the galley for the first section of the build, and we had the hammock slung across for several months before I built the bed, and we just fitted it out. We just hammered away at it, doing all of the work inside the boat or on the marina, which I would never recommend to anyone. I know that there's probably several people in this chat who've done these kind of projects and are looking at me wondering if I'm missing screws, and I think I might be. I know Brian is one of them, and Helen. So the van that's the van I lived in. When you say you live in a van, you expect someone to be living in a Sprinter van, but no, we lived in a Transit Connect. I couldn't even, I'm a small man, I'm only 5'8", 5'7", and I couldn't lie down in it fully, so my back still hasn't recovered. But Niamh would come down as well on weekends, and we'd stay in the van, and we had a mostly good time. I don't know if Niamh agrees, but it was really, really tough. But like, I suppose we got married recently, so it can't have been that bad. And then the picture on the right is just basically how the boat was during the project. It was just it was always like that. And I actually think that photo was taken the day before we left for Portugal, so there's more to that story. These are just kind of progress photos as we fitted the interior out. I got a guy to help me, a joiner, to help me with some of the more tricky Iroko stuff, because they just didn't have the means to do it on the marina, and he made the doors and some of the framework with out of Iroko for me, and did any of the stuff that I just couldn't do. So he was great, and he was able to kind of carry things on a couple of days a week for, I think, about a year, just to help me out. He was amazing to and then the thousands of emails between myself and Nick planning the project and planning the interior and all the advice he gave me. I bought the plans for the boat eventually off Copeland's designers.
I see you've got quite a lot of insulation, Rhys. That you spray foamed that, did you, or what's the story? That's for the going north, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, steel boats or any metal boat really without insulation is just a living hell. I think Matessier had an uninsulated steel boat, and I don't know how he did it, but I think he was a lunatic anyway. But the spray foam
it's
made
kind of sailing heresy, I think, isn't it? You just
yeah. I mean, now I'm back at work sitting at breakfast with all the lads I work with. They're all great lads, all engineers, and they're all a bit mad, and they still think I'm mad. So I when you're back around people who don't, this isn't normal to, you do wonder what you're thinking. But yeah, we got this boat. We took the boat over to the Kinsale Pier, and the lads brought the van down the fishing pier. I went to the pub, and they spray foamed the boat, and it took them like 8-9 hours, I think. They were at it all day. It was quite a warm day as well, and the poor lads were just completely soaked in sweat by the end of it. But the difference in the boat was incredible. The noise, like, there was no noise inside anymore. It was warm, comfortable. We could live in it. It wasn't survival anymore. It was more comfortable, and we've quickly built a bed and things like that in it. After the insulation went in, we started seeing massive improvements all the time. It was a year. I think it was 2 winters we had it without insulation, but about a year, just over a year, and it was like the difference was incredible. It was really comfortable after that. And I think that was May 2022. Oh no, not 2020. Sorry, 2019.
Did you get any condensation at all in the Arctic waters when you're up in Greenland?
Yeah, the engine room would always have condensation swimming around. When I say engine room, the engine compartment, and any under the bunks got a little bit damp sometimes. But I think, yeah, I think that was it was mostly just in the bilges, but nothing was dripping from anywhere else. Like,
yeah, good.
Some of the windows are a little bit drippy here and there, but mostly the boat was really dry up in Greenland. I couldn't believe how much condensation actually was being captured in the bilge. I think the water temperature was 1 degree, which didn't stop the crew going swimming. I'll share that next week or next month. But in the end, we got a really nice boat. These pictures were taken when the boat was actually finished after Portugal. We didn't finish the boat till we got to Portugal. I've got some pictures of that. We basically left Greystone, or we left Kinsale in April 2021, April the 1st. And we went up to Greystones, which is where Niamh is from. And we spent 2 weeks there. before we went to Betheli, and I'll get to that next. But we went up to Betheli and we did a huge amount of work there for 3 or 4 months, and then we went to Portugal in September. But we still didn't have a head. We still didn't have, well, the head was in, but it wasn't, the bathroom wasn't finished. The head area wasn't finished, and most of the galley, the second half of the galley wasn't finished. But we convinced ourselves to go, and I don't think I would have been able to do another year of building without seeing some kind of return on it. But I mean, the picture on the left is when we got to Martinique, and the picture on the right, I think, was taken a year ago or something. So, like, in the end, it all came together really nicely, and we got a huge amount of help from our YouTube channel. Was the main kind of benefit of that was the all the help we got. People would kind of email us, do you want any help, and then we do a video with them. Or I met so many really good people through it.
So helping with labor or helping
labor, products, like I'll get into it a little bit more in 2 slides, but we got a huge, without the help that we got, there was no hope. Like,
that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
The fund, we started the project, I think when we bought the hull, and that was all the money we had. So I don't really know what we were planning. So we just funded it as we went along with our wages as it came in every month. We'd be able to buy something else, and I'd buy enough that I could keep myself busy for 4 weeks before the next paycheck came in, and then I'd work again for another 4 weeks and then buy the next lot of stuff. And then towards the end of the project, and when our channel got a little bit more popular, people were starting to offer help, and I'll go into that more as well in the next couple of slides. But without that, we were fairly goosed. So after Greystones, we went over to Betheli. So this is a slightly interim picture. Probably should have put the other pictures after this, but here we are. In Betheli, we repainted the boat again, just because it got fairly scuffed up as we were doing the interior project. And on the Greystones, we had, I think, 4 or 5 engine failures, like just auxiliaries failing, or just so many little problems with the engine that we said, okay, let's look at our cruising kit and see if we don't have a new engine, we probably can't leave. So we ended up getting an engine through a friend of mine who helped me with the price as well. So we managed to get that, and I did all the labor, so I didn't have to pay anyone to put it in. And that engine was probably, apart from the mast and the sails, which I'll talk about next, was probably the smartest decision we made on the whole thing. Like, we did a lot of motoring, a lot more motoring than I would have liked to, but I mean, up in Greenland, there's not much wind anyway, and in the Med as well, and in the Bahamas we found we were motoring a lot too. I just think we were unlucky, but the engine started every single time, and we never ever had a problem, never. So it's a Beta 50, which is a fantastic engine. Really simple. Like, we were finding parts everywhere for it, or spares, sorry, like oil filters and everything like that. It was no problem. And then the picture on the left is just in progress. We got new winches through a online chandlery pro marine store who came on board and offered us cost price anything we needed. So we bought a lot of stuff through him at cost price, winches and things like that. Some electrics. So when we were in Kinsale, I got an email one day off a guy, a sailmaker in Betheli in Wales, who had also bought a steel boat, and he said, if you need anything, let me know. I think he probably regrets that to this day. I don't know if he's on the call. He said he might be, but the Boat Shed Sailmaker is the company, and Steve is the name of him, and he's actually become like one of my best friends. He crossed the Atlantic with me as well. He was the only guy that came across, and it was just such a gift, because we had the mast that we had, which was 17.5 meters, which is 3 meters longer than the rig design. So he said, okay, let's look at all the options. We cut the rig down, I'll make you a new main and all that stuff. And the sails I had with the boat were very good, so I was reluctant to start cutting sails, and I was reluctant to kind of give them up. So he said, all right, if you buy a mast, I think he was just bluffing, but I ended up calling it bluff. He said, if you send me a design, or if you send me the measurements, I'll price up a new mast, and if you can afford it, I'll make the sails for you for free.
Wow.
And then obviously we did some other things in the background to kind of make that worth it. But
so Rhys, this is YouTube contacts that you again?
Yep. He watched me through YouTube, And then because he had the steel boat too, I suppose that was where the link came for him. And then he was having one of his mad moments and offered all that help, and I jumped on it. And I'm so without him, we wouldn't have. There's absolutely no way we would have been able to do what we did without him. I genuinely don't know what we would have done. So what we actually did to fund the mast, because the mast is not a cheap thing, we made coins. They're like a collector's coin, and we made them and we sold them through our YouTube channel for a lot of money. So it was like, if you want to help us get a new mast, buy this coin for way too much money. And
so it was you that inspired Donald Trump then, was it?
What's he up to now? I don't know.
Oh, he's selling
I'm
coins
him in
well.
ages.
And Bitcoin. So no political jokes.
No, I don't know how we would have done it. It was actually another YouTube channel called SV Seeker, and he's a little bit controversial these days, but he was massive help to us that way, because he made them, and first he marketed them through his channel, and then gave us the remainder, and then we sold the rest through our channel. And people were amazing. They would be emailing us from all over the place. Like when we set it up to buy it, we were hoping that, because we're selling something, we won't get too much flack for it. It's not called e-begging, but people were still sending us like PayPal stuff. They really helped us out. Like we don't like, and neither of us come from any money, so we were really lucky. And then once we got the boat set up, we got the sails, the mast, the rigging, and the engine fitted in Pathetti. Took about 3 months because of COVID. We couldn't get a lot of stuff. Like the rigging took months because the stay lock weren't making the size that we needed. But eventually we got there, and we left on the 9th of September. We went back to Greystones, and then we picked up Nick from flight, and he joined us across Biscay. And the boat ended up like that. That's basically as finished as the boat ever looked. It really came together really nice. Something we're both very proud of is how the boat came together in the end. I bought the sail plan off Copeman's. He still had all of the designs, and I went back and forth with Zedspar to design the mast. We ended up with forward facing spreaders on the top of the mast, so that we could get rid of the running backstays. And the rig, we tuned the rig in September 2021, and I have never had to tune it since.
Wow.
And I've had people on board who tune rigs, and they're like, that's grand. So I mean, they did an amazing job. Like Jade is the rigger. He did some rigging for the GGR as well. He rigged Puffin, and yeah, actually Steve made the sails for Puffin too. So Steve's got a fairly strong portfolio of boats that he's made stuff for. So we crossed Biscay, which was me and Niamh's worst week ever. No, Nick, I have a vivid memory of Nick standing at the helm just smiling in 30-year-old Fowleys with pissing rain, and me and Niamh were like, I don't want to do this. It was just, we motored the whole way across. It was awful. It was just flat calm the whole way. We had a few nice days of sailing here and there, but it was spotty, and we just I don't know why we picked the window we did, but we did, and we got across. A question we got asked quite a lot when we were away, which I was never sure really how to answer, was how do we afford to do this? How do we afford to do this? One was the YouTube thing. We packed it up fairly soon after we left because it was too much work. And I'm an engineering contractor, and Niamh works for a leisure centre in marketing and management, and we both did that remotely. And there's a picture of me working remotely. And yeah, it was like the perfect storm when COVID came along, because we had Starlink and COVID sent everyone home. So yeah, the work kept coming in, so we just kept doing it. And we went from planning I think we originally planned to sail to Croatia and back. That was like the budget that we had to do. And we got to Ibiza, and we were like, actually, there's no sign of work stopping, so why don't we just head back out, because the Med wasn't really what we thought it was. Even though it was amazing, it was just a bit too busy, and there wasn't much sailing there, so we left. We went across the Atlantic instead. But that's how we did it. We paid for it through just luck and work. So we got to Portugal. We hauled the boat out again, and I finished the interior the heads. We spent 6 months because we arrived in November 21, and because I had a British passport, they sent me home. So I went home for 3 months, and came back when I got my Irish passport. I came back and spent 3 months between the boatyard and the marina, just getting the boat ready for the season. And we finished out the heads there, and we got a lovely heads out of it in the end, even though it took a long time. We got there in the end.
So I've got a question for Niamh, Rhys. So you sailed across the Bay of Biscay with a motor and a set of sails, but nothing completed inside. How did Niamh feel about that? Do you want to come in?
Well, I don't know if people know, that was my very first time actually sailing 6 days on a boat crossing Biscay. So
Your first night passage.
First night passage, first time proper sailing. So I think I was just thrown into the deep end, literally. It's kind of all a blur, to be honest with you.
So how did you get on crossing the shipping lanes and all that sort of stuff, going off Finisterre? It was a busy old piece of sea.
Like, you hear a lot of stories of Biscay, and like my dad, he's a big sailor, and he was like, "Oh, Biscay, it can be quite dangerous." But looking back, we had an easy run, too easy. It was flat seas, too flat for Rhys. Obviously, we were motoring along at the time, so looking back now, we got off easy with it. And for my very first sail / night sail, it was okay. But yeah, I don't know how I did 6 days.
Ah, good for you. And now you've got some heads, a toilet to use, which is luxury. Fantastic.
Yeah. Like we said, I don't know if we could do it now. We were a lot younger then, and I don't know how we just worked. We didn't have a heads, we don't have a shower, we've none of that. But we just did it. So, like, coming back to land life now, we take everything not for granted, all these little things. So, but yeah, Zora, she treated us well from nothing to what we have now. So yeah.
Well done you. So your kind of sea legs and things were unproven until you got out into the Bay of Biscay. Do you get seasick at all, Niamh? Or?
No, I'm looking not to.
Good.
I get a bit woozy now and again if I come downstairs to cook or anything, but I guess over the years you kind of learn what works for you and what not works for you. But
yeah, there's been several passages where I've been too sick on the first day to do anything, and then Niamh's done it all.
Great.
Like several times. Yeah.
Well, I've tried to pretend that I know what I'm doing.
Well, you can take a boat apart and put it back together. That's the important bit.
Yeah, and keep Rhys alive to keep it going. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
That's great. No, thanks, Niamh. So a huge part of the trip, so basically that was the build, right? So how many slides are we in now? We're halfway through the slides. So from now on, it was getting to the States, and a huge for us. I wasn't really sure what to expect when we left, and a huge part for us, we met a big group of people, sailors in Portugal, in Viana de Castillo, was it? And one of the harbors in the Portuguese coast, we met them, and we cruised with them the whole time. Like, we met them and we still talked to all of them, but we did stay with one boat. I don't know if Jan is on the call. He said he would be, but we met Jan and Siri in Portugal, and we cruised with them for like 2 years. We buddy boated with them for 2 years, and we'd have a meeting once a week. What's next? And we'd always do it together. And it was the biggest unexpected bonus of the whole thing, was meeting them and meeting all of the people that we met along the way, and that we spent the time we spent with all these people. I think we spent in total probably 5% of the time just on our own, without another buddy boat. So that was the biggest surprise for us. So that's actually Jan there, and when we went to Gibraltar, and my Crocs that I lost in the Bahamas, which I never quite got over. The biggest shock for us was how close everyone would anchor to us in the Med, and that was kind of the defining point for us. Like, maybe we should leave, but yeah, they used to anchor on top of us. The ding used to be bumping in. They were mostly friendly, and we made friends with these guys. But when we were in that anchorage, I rebuilt the Monitor as well, and Monitor it's a brilliant wind vane. I took it off in the anchorage, and two parts had cracked. Which I took the parts off, and I took them to. If anyone's ever been on Formentera, there's a small boatyard there, and I had the two parts in my hand, and I walked around the yard looking for a fellow with a TIG welder, and I saw the blue flashes out of a building, and I went over with 50 euros and gave it to him, and he gave them back, and one of them broke on the transatlantic, which I'll show you. But it wasn't always, you know, we weren't always stuck in with a big group of people. We with big anchorages full of people, we were anchored just with Jan and Syrian with their boat there as well. And myself and Jan would before I left Ireland, or before I got to Ibiza, actually, I would refuse to go swimming. I was absolutely no interest in swimming at all. And that'll be important to know when I go through the next few slides, because we got very serious into it. And Jan is the reason I got into diving. So anyone who's done, I mean, everyone says that cruising is just fixing boats in interesting places, and Lanzarote was one of those places. We had a fairly serious vibration out of the drivetrain. So we took the boat out of the water, we went home, we got married, and then we came back. And on the way back, we had to buy a new prop shaft. I carried it onto the plane, and I checked it on as skis going from Ireland down to the Canaries, and no one ever questioned it. So we got the prop shaft down there, and I took the rudder off.
Was that on your wedding present list or something? Or...
Yeah, it may as well have been. I might have saved us a bit of cash, but no, we got that off Darglo Engineering, which made the propeller as well, and they're a fantastic company to deal with. I got fairly friendly with one of the engineers there, and anything I need, I call him, and he knows exactly what's going on, and he deals with it. So he sent me down he sent it across to Ireland. I carried it down, and changed the prop shaft. We did a load of work in the boatyard actually over 2 weeks to get ready for the crossing. And the boat really didn't look as good ever since. But then we left the Canaries in December 22, 11th of December 22. And for whatever, I have no idea why, but I shaved my head. I'll never know why. Steve made me do it. I don't know if is he on the call, dude? He's Steve, if you're there, I blame you wholeheartedly for me looking like that. So Steve joined me. Steve was my sailmaker. He's the guy who made it, basically made it possible. So it was great that he could join me. It was either going to be him or no one. So, you know, myself and Steve did it on our own. Niamh joined us in the Caribbean, and I think I would have done it alone if it hadn't been for Steve. It was great. But we got a bit of a kicking on the third week. It took us 21 days from the Canaries straight to Martinique. And we lost the wind vane on the third day, and we fixed it, and I'll show you how we fixed it in the next slide. But yeah, I have a very vivid memory of Steve hanging me over with my ankles, tying the wind vane back together with Dyneema, and it got us across. But we had some fairly. I did a transatlantic in 2017, and it was a lovely trip. This one was a lot rougher. It was one day where it was gusting nearly 40 knots, and there was a really, really big swell. So we had 3 or 4 days where we were just miserable. And we also lost our solar panels. Neither of them were connected by the end of this. So we had no power and a dodgy wind vane. So yeah, it was an interesting trip. It was pretty straightforward. But if anyone's familiar with the monitor, it's got a hinging rudder on the pendulum, and there's a latch that clicks on, and that broke. So one of the parts I had welded in Formentera, I don't blame his welding. I just blame the fact that it was 304 steel, and he probably welded it with 316, and yeah, it just wasn't a good weld. So we tied it together with Dyneema, and it actually, apart from a lot of slop, it steered the whole way. It steered better than either of us could have steered. And then Niamh, Niamh was ordering parts back home, so I'd send her an Iridium message, and she'd be ordering the parts back home. So aside from all the provisioning she did, she'd also ran the shoreside support. But that worked fine. So yeah, I would definitely put a long line of Dyneema in anyone's cruising bag, spares bag. Super important to have that. That was just our view for the 3 weeks. Just our bunks turn into. We've got 2 bunks in the saloon with 2 leeboards, and I've got 2 poles, and we just pulled the 2 sails out, reefed in and out as we went, and it was quite a good trip actually. And then this is us arriving, myself and Steve arriving again, 2 shaved heads lads, standing in Martinique. Great trip, really, honestly, quite simple. We had the Starlink working. That was one of the first. We were one of the first groups of people to use the Starlink on the transatlantic, and it was still free when we were only paying, I think, €50 a month for unlimited worldwide connection. So we were able to stay connected most of the way across, which, to be honest, I mean, everyone's got their own theory on whether you should be connected or not. It was really nice to have it, and it was really nice to be able to turn it off. So we turned it on, checked out whether I was able to ring Niamh or speak to Niamh, and then turn it back off again. And the first, I did a transatlantic before, and we had absolutely nothing, and I enjoyed this one more. And then when we got to the Caribbean, again, we were with our cruising friends, and we got really serious into freediving. Like, myself and Niamh would go out a lot. Myself and Jan would go out every single day spearfishing, and that's how we kept fit, but how we kept food going as well. But we did a lot of freediving, and Niamh was a swimming instructor, but I couldn't swim until we got to Ibiza. So she eventually got me in the water, and we got over that eventually. We had a good time in the Caribbean. It was the Windward Islands. I wouldn't go back, but I did like it when we were there. I think it was a good experience. We had we stayed there for hurricane season. We had one tropical storm breath come through. We were in St. Lucia when we got the warning, and we went to Carriacou. And when we were in Carriacou, everyone was anchoring in the main anchorage, but the harbour master was bringing boats into the mangrove. And usually mangroves are a protected area, so you're not allowed to use them until there's a storm warning. But he said that it's fine, so we went in, and we had a really pleasant couple of days. And the fellas in the anchorage, I don't think it had it as pleasant. It was gusting 50-something knots, but it was grand. We had a good time. Some more freediving. We just every single day. It was freediving every day, and Niamh got into myself and Niamh did our scuba diving course as well. So we were just under the water as much as we were on top of it. And then we went from, so the route was, we went from Martinique as far as Antigua. We turned around, went back down to Grenada, and by mid-August realized that it was too hot, and the diving wasn't very good. So I decided that Niamh would go home, and I'd bring the boat to the ABC Islands, and we'd spend the hurricane season there. So that's what we did. And we spent how long? We did 2 months there, and then we went to South America and came back, and then we went to Jamaica. So that's how we ended up in Jamaica. So when we were there, we would often get stopped on the street and asked if we had any kind of spare stuff in the boat that we didn't want. And Jamaica has a bad rap when it comes to safety, but we were up in Port Antonio and had a great time. We were there for Christmas last year, and people are so nice there and friendly, and we didn't have any trouble. One guy asked if I had any spearfishing equipment, and I gave him a spear gun, and he sends me voice notes in patois. I have absolutely no idea what he's saying, but I really appreciate the sentiment. And he often sends me pictures of his kids and of what he's catching and selling in the restaurant. So that was a really nice kind of connection to have in Jamaica. And that was Niamh when Niamh was a bartender in Jamaica as well. That's a different story. We spent 3 months in the Bahamas. This is the Ragged Islands, which is a chain just south in the south west of it. It's south of Exumas and west of Inagua, and it's paradise. It's the most incredible place in the world. The fishing is amazing. The water, the swimming is amazing. There's a lot of sharks, but sharks aren't really a problem. Again, we just made an unbelievable amount of friends as we went around. It was always raft up sessions, or we didn't drink a lot, to be fair. We weren't big party animals, but we really enjoyed company. We enjoyed having people with us, and we met a lot of people in the Exumas from the States with children as well, very young children. So we became kind of babysitters for a while, which was great. I wouldn't change it at all. And we got, again, the swimming and spearfishing was a major part of our life. We ate a lot of fish, which in the Caribbean you have to be a little bit careful of with cicutera, but we were cautious enough. And I got, as Brian would say, buck fever. And it just got out of hand, to be honest. But we never had a shortage of fish, which was really nice. A lot of beach fires and stuff. But it wasn't always good fun, you know. We had some kind of hairy moments with shallows in the Bahamas. We draw 6 feet, and they say that's kind of the limit. And we dragged along the bottom often enough. We bumped into a reef once, which and then we had some horrendous thunderstorms as well. I had to wear goggles. There was really nasty thunderstorms coming through. And eventually then we made it up to America. We went up the ICW. And the most kind of iconic picture of the trip was probably the Statue of Liberty. That's the one really that, because we have such strong connections with the States, really, from Ireland, and especially New York, and people really resonate with that picture, and it kind of it hits home for them what we actually did. And like what we did was pretty crazy overall. So my voice is getting fairly sore now, but we're on the last picture now. This is my favorite picture from Greenland, and I'm going to talk more about this in a month. But after the States, we went up to Newfoundland, across to Greenland, and Simon was a massive help. Simon and Bob and all the lads in the WhatsApp group were super helpful in getting us ready for that. And we had an unbelievable, like, the next talk will be based, this was 7 years of work. The next talk is 6 months. So, you know, it'll show you how much we really did in 6 months to match, you know, that level of talk. But yeah, any questions?
Thank you very much, Rhys. That was a lovely talk, really great and inspirational that you did it on a shoestring, and really the cruising community coming together to lend a hand with their labour and their price reductions, making it all possible. Fantastic story, heartwarming story, very good. Please put your electronic hands up if you've already got your microphones open. Come in, ask Rhys any questions you got. I've opened Bob Shepton's microphone. So Bob, if you unmute yourself, seeing as you were mentioned in that last paragraph.
Honorable mention.
We need Bob online. Bob, go ahead. Not unmuted yet. So any other hands going up there at the moment? There is a Steve online. Is that, it just says Stephen Guest? Would that be your Pwllheli man? Steve, if you are the guy from Pwllheli, we will be pleased to hear from you. There's Steve Seagore as well, who I think, Steve, you crossed the Atlantic in the same year, didn't you?
No one wants to talk to me, Simon.
Yeah, Bob's got his microphone open. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I'm not sure quite why you wheeled me on. I was, of course, it's all far too warm what he was doing down there. So I'm really waiting till he gets up to Greenland, I think.
No, I appreciate all of I actually met you, Bob, as well. We met in Bayona, you, me, and Nick. I have a picture in my, not in my wallet, but I have a picture on my phone of you and me and Nick in Bayona.
Great, great. Yes, I must do that warm weather crossing one day. Yeah.
I think you'd like it, Bob, you know? I think you went to Greenland with a good friend of mine recently, Sean Beecher.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great. I've actually just emailed Sean, that's funnily enough. Yeah.
Yeah, his mooring is right next to mine. So his boat's called Niamh, actually. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Achilles 24.
Yeah. Great.
We've got a question from Pat Murphy. I think I know you, Pat, because Pat crossed the Atlantic with us in 1999 on a boat called Aldebaran, if it's the same guy. So Pat, you can open your microphone if you wish. I've enabled it, so you just need to unmute yourself and go ahead. We've got some chats coming in. I think you can see.
Am I unmuted now?
You're loud and clear, Pat. Go ahead.
Right. Well, on our boat, we had a thermometer set on the water, and when the water got too cold, it turned us back. So that's why we would never have got to Greenland or anywhere like that. And during our 8-year circumnavigation, the original plan was 4 years, and we managed to stretch to 8 fabulous years on it. and New Zealand, Australia, you name it, we did a whole lot on it. Panama Canal, Suez Canal, and from the Galapagos Islands across the Pacific, it took us 23 days at sea, just the two of us, and we didn't have one row. Believe me, I'm being honest with that one, you know. So, so just the two of us. So I enjoyed the talk on it, but I must say we tended to stick to warm waters. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat. That's great. That's good crack. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Anybody else want to come in there? There's one comment on the chat from I can't read it.
Oh, that's a friends of mine, Andrew and Caitlin.
Okay,
Actually, we met those guys here at home, and yeah, they were in the Med for a while, and then they've just got back to Ireland as well. So they've got their own story there as well.
Grand. So anybody, Richard, Kingsnorth, Robert, you guys have got your microphone ready to go. So if you want to come in, you're very welcome. You've got an awestruck silence out there.
There's a question from Robert. Sorry, is there someone speaking there?
Yeah, Robert's got a question on the. Richard's got his microphone open, so we'll read Robert's question first. With what's your battery bank set up and how you're charging it?
So we started off with 200 amp hours of lead acid, and we crossed Biscay and got halfway down. We got to Cascais with that because we didn't have an autopilot until we got to was it Ibiza? Yeah, Almerimar. So we fitted the autopilot and Almerimar, and I remember going through the scrap bin in the boatyard, pulling out three nice square plates of steel and welding them outside the restaurant in Almerimar to make the bracket to fit the ram. And after that, we realized we needed more batteries. So we started off with 200 amp hours of lithium, and then when we got to Martinique and we started realizing that actually Starlink is using a lot of power and we need to work more, we got another one. So we've got 400 amp hours of lithium, and that's charged with 500 watts of solar and a 30 amp alternator.
Yeah, well done.
We always struggle for power.
Lithium does make a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got some more questions for you. I'll take them in order. Richard Kingsnorth, you've got your microphone. Then we'll go to Alex, and then we'll go to Brian. So Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, it's to go back to the insulation, Rhys. You were talking about cold weather, but a steel boat in hot weather can heat up quite a lot. Did you find the insulation was working well or sufficiently in both directions like that?
Yeah, it's a good question actually, because the deck would often get very hot. We painted the deck like a very light grey, so it didn't get too hot. Unless the days were really horrible, it would burn our feet as we were walking on it, but that was quite rare. Inside usually stayed fairly comfortable until we got to the Caribbean, until we got to like the South Islands like Grenada in the hurricane season, towards hurricane season. And we just, everyone cooked. It was horrendous. And it basically stayed the same temperature inside all the time. So we found it very hard to cool the boat down when it got to that stage, but on normal hot days, tropical days, it was actually really nice. So especially if we had a light breeze. It kept by the morning it would be nice and cool inside, and it would stay cool up until the afternoon, and then it would eventually get the same temperatures outside, and it would hold the heat in there through the night. So I don't really have a reference. I've never owned a fiberglass boat, or I've never spent much time on one, but I would imagine that they're probably the same.
Much the same. Ours is very well insulated, but what we have found is that the teak deck laid on top of fiberglass gets incredibly hot.
Really?
And I wouldn't advise it for anybody.
Yeah,
we've got it just in our cockpit, but often you can't stand them.
I'm on the same with teak decks, but that's mainly because I'm scared of them being on steel. Because I've seen people take up a teak deck and they've brought the deck with it, so because of corrosion, you know. But no, it's a good question. The insulation, obviously, when we got north, it was very nice. We had the heating on all the time. Bob's probably shaking his head now, but we had the heating on all the time. It was lovely and cozy inside. And I remember, I won't go into too much detail because this is next week's story, but I had two lads with me. I had Luke, which is he was YSP, the Young Sailors program, and I had Mark, who's an experienced sailor. He did 2 single-handed transatlantics, and I met him in the Canaries. I'll go into more details about that next week. But I remember Mark was downstairs on the radar. I don't have a radar screen up at the helm. It was really foggy the day we arrived to Greenland, and we had the radar on downstairs. Myself and Luke were standing up on top on the back deck looking for ice, and Mark was down here in his jocks handing up cups of tea. So,
We probably didn't need to know that. Anyway, thank you very much, Rhys, and we'll hope to see you in a few weeks.
my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got 3 questioners lined up. We've got Alex first, then Brian, then Nick. So go ahead, Alex.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Yeah, Alex and Angie here from Sailing Yacht 2 Flower. We were actually in touch with you, Rhys, this summer because we were in Kinsale and we saw your little note about your mooring in the river there. So I don't know if you remember, you were at that point in Newfoundland waiting to cross to Greenland.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, and it was quite fun to chat with you because obviously we didn't expect when talking to a sailor from Ireland that they would just happen to be going to Greenland more or less with the same kind of plan of where we had been on another boat, another Copeman's steel boat.
No, I appreciate the advice you gave me. That was really helpful.
So that was really fun for us, and yeah, I guess I don't really have a question, but just wanted to say thanks so much for the talk, and it was really great to kind of catch up on your story now. When we saw that you were giving the first webinar, we suddenly made the connection and realized we never actually found out what happened to you and where you how you came to be. How you came to be.
I'm alive.
So great to have heard the backstory, and very much looking forward to hearing about the Greenland parts.
I appreciate that, Alex. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alex. So next to Brian and then to Nick. Brian, go ahead. Brian, you have your hand up, but your microphone is muted at the moment.
Actually, Brian and Helen were a huge inspiration to me before we even met because Brian and Helen built their boat Hellacious. It's a Dudley Dix 45 from scratch, from nothing, in their shed in Texas, and they had a blog, and I read all of it just after they launched, and I took a lot of ideas from them. And I remember seeing the boat driving past Le Moran coming into Martinique, and I sped over in the dinghy and just started shouting at them. And
I remember that very well. That was great. Hellacious. Hey. That was wonderful. Yeah. So I have a comment and a question. So what we've discovered, and I think it applies to any boat, not just metal boats, but we have 9 fans down below, the 12-volt Caframo fans, and we find that having air movement is the key to survival in the hot climate. Because, like you said, we come from the south in the U.S. and it's just always hot. So that's I see a lot of boats that don't have any fans inside, and they're inexpensive and easy to wire and don't use much power. So tip there. Our question is concerning Jamaica and your route. What was your route from? Did you go straight from the ABCs to Jamaica, and then what was your route from Jamaica to the Bahamas?
So on the fans, that's a really good point. Niamh hassled me about fans, and then I put them up, and I was like, Niamh was right, and Niamh was always right. But we bought, Niamh bought like 6 battery-powered fans, 12-volt or 5-volt battery-powered fans, and yeah, they like the nights. I remember the nights where we didn't charge the fans. They were the worst. So yeah, great point. And the other question, so we were sitting in the anchorage in Aruba, and it was early December, and we wanted to get to the Bahamas as soon as possible. And we were sitting there waiting for a weather window to get to the Dominican Republic. And obviously Haiti is a no-go zone, so we couldn't use that. So we were looking at Dominican Republic, and the Christmas winds kicked in. So anyone who doesn't know what the Christmas winds are, they're basically just a consistently very strong trade wind. They average 25 knots, from memory, and we were sitting in Aruba watching, and there's also a very, very strong current running just north of the ABCs. It's up to like 3 knots. So getting to the Dominican Republic from people telling me stories is very, very uncomfortable and difficult. So we got to Captain Paul, which anyone who's been in the marina at Aruba will know Captain Paul. He advised us to go to Jamaica. And I said, well, isn't Jamaica really dangerous? And he's like, where did you hear that from? And I was like, that's fair. That's a fair point. He said, just go to Jamaica, you will be fine. So we went and we got there in 3.5, 4 days. And we went direct from Aruba to Jamaica. And it was, Niamh always says that was her favorite passage. We were average 6.2 knots. For us, is really fast. So we normally average 5.5. So we flew over to Jamaica. We were there for 2 weeks. Really, really enjoyed it. We went into the marina just because we decided that we didn't have time to do the coast. And we were well positioned in Port Antonio to get through the Windward Passage to Inagua. So we met, what's Bob's second name? There's a guy Bob, he's 86, 83, and he came down from Inagua through the Windward Passage, and he was telling us, don't get it wrong. So we waited for a couple of weeks, and then we saw this 2-day weather window, which was just flat calm. So we said, okay, look, we don't do it this very often. We'll just motor there and get it out of the way. We wanted to get to the Bahamas, so we motored for 2 days, and it was actually really enjoyable. We just had the autopilot on, and we sat in the cockpit and just talked for 2 days, and there was no stress, and it was fine until we got to Cuba. We didn't have the radar yet when we got to Cuba, and there was a lot of very small unlit fishing boats that they were using their mobile phone to warn us that we were like on a collision course with them. So that was the only scary part about that. The Windward Passage, you can get weather windows to sail through as well, but they're very rare. The southerly there is very rare. From my own experience, it was all really strong northeasterlies. They seem to be a strong northeasterly that would strengthen over 3 or 4 days, and then you get a calm or a relative calm, and then it would build, and then you get another calm. And a system might come through and bring a southerly, but we didn't get it, so we just motored. But then what was our route through the Bahamas, or was that kind of cover your?
We were more interested in how close to Cuba or Haiti, or did you go kind of cut the difference between the two?
I skimmed Cuba fairly close. I was fairly nervous about Haiti.
Yeah.
A friend of mine did go to Haiti, and he said don't. So yeah, but he had a big aluminium boat he could lock, every door, and it was, there was no getting into that boat.
But you felt you were far enough offshore that you were fairly safe from both.
We didn't have any grievances about Cuba. I wasn't worried about Cuba. Maybe that's naive, but we felt like because the US patrol there so much, and with Guantanamo there, I felt like if we needed help, we could get it fairly quickly. But the Haitian side, I've heard that there's often people will row 20 miles offshore and wait for you there, and you can have trouble there. So that was what we did. We skimmed Cuba. There is Santiago to Cuba, but I heard it's a fairly awful place, so we didn't go, and we didn't want to take us down. Does that cover it, Helen?
Thank you.
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. Send me a text as well if you have any specific.
Thanks.
Will do.
Thank you, Brian and Helen. And next we'll go to Nick Cottier. There's also a question on the Q&A from Chris Foster about your photo that you've got on the screen at the moment.
Oh yeah,
because I think
I won a competition.
Yeah,
it was a Cruiser Awards competition for photo of the year, and this one won that. So that's what he means.
Deservedly. So Nick first, and then back to Robert. So Nick, go ahead. I guess it has to be said, Nick, you must have been the inspiration for this, but what on earth possessed you to buy that kind of wreck in the first place? And what a gorgeous job it is now.
I had a joinery business for getting on 15 years. And in late 2009 was a terrible year in well, across Europe, but it was very, very difficult in Ireland with the economic crash. So I lost my business in 2009, and I started working in the boat shed. I was offered work there because I'd done lots of timber prep for them, and I never wanted to see another bit of wood, so so the boat was a sort of anti-wood therapy, really.
Fantastic job. Fantastic.
I just wanted to make a comment earlier when Rhys was talking about the Darglo propeller and the Darglo shaft. You know, I work in boat maintenance, so I've stripped an awful lot of propellers. That Darglo propeller, there was lots of parts for the boat. They came from a boat that went on the rocks in Ireland in a particularly bad storm. And I bought the boat for €1 and broke it. But that Darglo propeller bounced up and down for 2 weeks with all the weight of the boat on top of it on rocks. The blades was completely bent double, and the other 2 blades were bent. I straightened the blades, and the mechanism inside was absolutely perfect. It was completely free. I was so impressed with the strength of it. It's by far and away the best propeller that I've stripped, and I've stripped
told me
most.
that. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I stripped most major brands of propellers at one
Great.
time or another. So if anyone's looking for an incredibly robust and well-made propeller, that's I think Rhys wasn't so impressed with the pitch. The pitch cassette on the back of the propeller doesn't work so well, unfortunately. But the main
I
gear in
actually
it is
noticed, that's a good point, because I'd noticed when I hauled the boat out in America this year, one of the bolts had actually snapped off, and the pitch cassette was like hanging on by one bolt with 2 threads. So yeah, no,
but that was the second one.
yeah. Well, the first one. Why did we? I know the second one is because I wanted to change the pitch for the new engine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But they're like, as a company, they're not paying me anything, and they didn't give me anything for free. They charge really hard, but they're really, it's a really refreshing company to deal with.
Yeah, I dealt with them too, and they were so nice.
They're based down in southwest Wales. Is that I think you're the right people, Rhys, Darglo, down in Pembrokeshire or somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah, they're in. I mean, they're in the UK. I think they're in England.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they're in Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Nick. Fantastic job you made of the bear hull. Fantastic. We'll go to Robert, but first we've got a comment from Richard Kingsnorth, who says that Santiago de Cuba is actually a lovely place from when they visited Cuba, and they serve marvelous mojitos.
Yeah,
and
my comments probably weren't fair because I wasn't there, but I just
a shout out for Cuba. It is a great cruising area, but of course it is difficult for the Americans to go there. So as Europeans, we're privileged to be able to visit Cuba.
yeah, it's one place that if we go back, we'll go straight to the Bahamas and across to Cuba.
Yeah, highly recommended. Robert van der Plaats.
That's a little bit the same I want to tell. We also visited Jamaica. Port of Antonio was great. We stayed there for 8 weeks and also left the boat there for 4 weeks when we went home to Holland. And from there we went to Cuba because that was a 100-mile crossing. And we were there for 14 days and we had a wonderful time. And I also want to advise everybody to visit Cuba. And they know it's good to don't have stamps in your passport. So it's great to be there. So we will go back if we are in that area. So that was.
I wish I'd asked you guys before I skipped it.
No, Cuba's great. Comments from Anita Hamilton, who says that Darglo is in Wareham, and they've got one too. And Marcus has come back online. Now, Marcus is one of the guys that dialed into our rehearsal today. So,
my buddy
Marcus,
boat from.
if you're dialing in from Sweden, go ahead, Marcus.
Hi there, Rhys.
Hello.
Hi. Have you decided where you're sailing to next?
Oh, I was dreading that question.
Ah, sorry.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I think it's actually, yeah, it's I don't think I'd go south over going north. I think going north now, what we experienced of us together in Greenland, like, has changed kind of my perspective of sailing, really. The people up there, the landscape, the sailing is challenging. I mean, I will definitely go back north, and I have my eyes on Scoresby Sound. So, well, between all of the other things that we have to do now that we're home, including buying a house, we have to figure out a way of doing that in the next 5 years, I think.
I follow you there.
With you, obviously.
Yeah.
With the two one-offs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shout out for Scoresby Sound. No better places. I think Bob will now agree.
Yes, I wouldn't say no better place, but it certainly is remarkable and very much worth a visit.
Thanks, Bob. I'll get into climbing then as well, so you can't be.
All right. Okay. Well, I could just point you at one or two walls if you want.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, I got to leave the drone behind next time.
I just, in passing, must tell you that Sean and Co. did get up Mirror Wall this last summer.
Brilliant.
So it was, fairly easy, extreme 9, but it was a fantastic achievement.
That's great. Maybe you'll do a talk on that one. Thanks, Bob.
Great. Well, Rhys, Niamh, where do you want to go sailing next? We've heard from Rhys. What's Niamh's ambition?
Honestly, I'd actually, from hearing stories from other cruises that we've seen, I'd like to see Scotland. I'd like to see it there. Yeah.
Oh, well, Scotland's just a hop, skip, and a jump away, and we have a waiting for you when you get there. So,
and we have a lot of cruiser friends we've met that are in Norway, so it'd be nice to go see them up in Norway as well at some point.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I thoroughly recommend the Hebrides, and that's just a summer cruise for you guys.
And don't forget, I'm the port officer, so you must ring me when you come.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were just there. I was in the Hebrides, but we skipped through fairly quickly because we were eager to get home. But I'll cover that in the next talk.
Sure.
Great. Thank you very much, both. Lovely talk. Lovely to meet you both online. And thank you, everybody that has dialed in this evening. Moderate attendance, but I guess it's the first in the series. So tell your mates they're missing a treat. Be there in a couple of weeks' time at least to get episode 2 from Rhys and Niamh. And next week we've got Charlie Young, who's a lovely young environmental scientist who's going to talk to us, I think, about her recent Atlantic crossing. She's in South America at the moment, and about her environmental work. So that's something to look forward to. And then, of course, Jimmy Cornell the week after that, and that certainly will be worth hearing. Well, they're all worth hearing.
I was going to say, thanks, Simon.
Bit of a slip up there, Simon, yeah.
Oh, tactful as ever. Brilliant.
Thanks for that. Thanks for organising it, Simon, as I know there's a lot in it. So
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Lovely to see you guys online. And I'm going to cut the recording, but if people want to chat, then please do. I'll just stop.